On a crisp Friday morning, a woman in her mid-40s pulled a simple gray sweatshirt over her head, flattening the wrinkles with her palms before slipping into a pair of faded jeans and comfortable sneakers. Her name was Rachel Bennett, and today was not just another day, it was the culmination of 2 decades spent navigating the legal system, rising from the trenches of public defense to the threshold of one of the most powerful positions in her jurisdiction. Rachel studied herself in the mirror of her modest bathroom, tucking a strand of brown hair behind her ear. She looked nothing like the woman whose headshot now sat in the state archives, attached to her appointment as the new presiding judge of Kings County Courthouse. That was the point. This morning, she needed to disappear into the crowd to see the court, the people, and its culture without the distorted lens of titles and expectations. Her official introduction wasn't until next Monday. Until then, she was just another concerned citizen. It had taken some convincing. When Rachel pitched the idea to Chief Justice Eleanor Vance, a sharp-witted veteran of the state Supreme Court, she'd been met with a puzzled look. "You want to do what?" Eleanor had asked, raising a brow over her glasses. "I want to see the court as it is, raw and unfiltered," Rachel had said. "No ceremony. No warning. Just me watching. I need to know what I'm walking into." Eleanor had relented after a pause. "You'll be on your own until the announcement. Stay out of trouble." As Rachel drove herself to the courthouse that morning, she bypassed the judge's private parking and instead slid into a crowded public lot across the street. The courthouse stood imposingly, its granite facade and heavy wood doors echoing a kind of cold authority she had never quite warmed to. But today, she wasn't here as Judge Bennett. She slipped through security unnoticed, her bag containing only a small notebook, a pen, and her credentials tucked away in case of emergency. Following the signs to Courtroom 3, she blended seamlessly into the slow-moving current of people, defendants, family members, plaintiffs, and clerks. The hum of shuffling papers, whispered conversations, and echoing heels bounced off the marble halls. Inside Courtroom 3, Rachel found a seat in the back. The hearing she was here for was the Roberts case, one she had read about during her appointment review. A seemingly straightforward financial misconduct lawsuit that had somehow stretched over 3 years. She knew the case well too well. The court-appointed counsel representing the Roberts family had repeatedly requested extensions, citing a lack of access to discovery documents. The opposing firm, Easton and Burrell, a well-connected financial legal group, had faced no such hurdles. The Roberts family sat quietly in the front row. Karen Roberts, her husband David, and their daughter Madison, a college freshman whose tuition fund had allegedly been drained by a fraudulent advisor, looked tired but hopeful. Rachel watched closely as the bailiff gave a cheerful nod to Easton and Burrell's lead attorney, then ignored the Roberts entirely. At 10:05, the courtroom's side door opened and Judge Harold Dunham entered in flowing black robes. He was tall, silver-haired, and had commanded this bench for over 3 decades. The room rose. Rachel followed suit. Case 17-992. Roberts versus Easton and Burrell, Judge Dunham called, barely glancing at the plaintiffs. Rachel noticed immediately how he greeted the defense attorney by name. "Good morning, Mr. Kavanaugh," but made no effort to acknowledge the Roberts counsel, who, at that moment, jogged breathlessly into the courtroom, nearly 10 minutes late. "Mr. Peterson," Dunham said dryly, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Glad you could join us. Once again demonstrating your inability to respect this court's calendar." Laughter echoed from the clerks and a few attorneys seated nearby. Rachel glanced at Madison, who shrank in her seat. This was not just another date on a calendar for them, this was their future. 20 minutes passed. Judge Dunham granted Mr. Kavanaugh his 3rd extension to submit documentation. When Mr. Peterson timidly requested the same courtesy, Dunham waved it off without so much as a pause. Rachel felt something in her chest tighten. Before she realized what she was doing, she was on her feet. "Excuse me," she said firmly, clearly. The room froze. Judge Dunham looked up with a mixture of surprise and irritation. "Ma'am, this isn't a town hall. If you'd like to remain, sit down. Otherwise, I'll have you escorted out." Rachel didn't flinch. "I apologize, Your Honor, but I believe I've observed a procedural inconsistency. If one side is granted additional time for discovery, shouldn't the same courtesy be extended to the other?" The defense attorney turned, his expression somewhere between insulted and bemused. "And you are?" Dunham asked, voice thick with sarcasm. A concerned observer, she replied, her tone steady. Dunham smirked. When you pass the bar and practice law for 3 decades, maybe your opinion will carry weight. Until then, sit down. A ripple of chuckles swept through the courtroom. The bailiff stepped forward, clearly prepared to escort her out. Rachel sat back down slowly, cheeks burning off from shame, but from the sting of watching justice dismissed like an annoying gnat. She glanced at Madison Roberts again. The young woman was looking at her with a mixture of surprise and wonder. Judge Dunham, however, wasn't finished. Actually, he said, removing his glasses and setting them on the bench, why don't you approach Mississippi? Bennett, she said, rising calmly. She walked to the front of the courtroom, every step echoing. Miss Bennett, Dunham said with mock courtesy. And your legal qualifications are? I've studied the law, she replied carefully. Laughter erupted again. Well, Miss Bennett, the legal scholar, Dunham said, making air quotes with his fingers. What would you have me do? I wouldn't presume to tell a judge how to rule, she said. I'm simply advocating for fairness. You're not here to advocate, Dunham snapped. This isn't some message board where anyone can comment. This is a courtroom, and we operate with rules. He waved a hand dismissively. You may return to your seat. Any further disruptions and you'll be removed. Are we clear? Perfectly clear, Rachel replied, turning to return to her seat. Her spine straight, her expression serene, even as the entire courtroom stared. The proceedings resumed. Dunham granted the defense everything they requested while shutting down each of Peterson's objections like flies. Rachel took notes silently. At recess, the court clerk Mona Hastings watched her curiously. Mona's eyes narrowed and Rachel recognized that look. She'd been recognized or was close to it. The defense attorney sauntered up to the bench, sharing a laugh with Dunham. By the time the Roberts family and attorneys returned from their private settlement meeting, they looked defeated. Dunham cleared his throat. Let me remind the gallery that settlement discussions are confidential. Any interference will result in contempt charges. He looked pointedly at Rachel. She slipped out quietly, ducking into the restroom. She needed a moment. Seconds later, the door opened. Judge Bennett? Mona Hastings stood there, eyes wide. Rachel sighed, giving a small smile. Yes, it's me. I saw your appointment, Mona said, her voice low. But why? Rachel met her eyes. Because I needed to know what this courtroom really isn't the version they show visiting dignitaries. The Chief Justice is here, Mona whispered. They're preparing to introduce you now. I know, Rachel said, reapplying her lipstick calmly. Can you do me a favor? Let me walk in last. Minutes later, in courtroom 3, the atmosphere shifted again. The Chief Justice entered, flanked by an administrator holding official documents. Dunham leaned over. You're introducing her today? I haven't even met her. You have, Eleanor said coolly. You just didn't know it. The doors opened. Rachel walked in, still in her gray sweatshirt, jeans, and sneakers, but this time, she radiated unmistakable presence. The room fell into stunned silence. Dunham stared, blood draining from his face. Rachel stepped up to the bench. For those unaware, I'm Rachel Bennett. As of Monday, I will be presiding judge of this court. A gasp. She turned to Dunham. Thank you, Judge Dunham, for your informative demonstration today. It's been enlightening. The Chief Justice stepped forward. Judge Bennett requested to observe court proceedings before her formal start date. Today's events, though unconventional, highlight her dedication. The administrator presented the documents. Judge Harold Dunham, we formally acknowledge your retirement, effective this Friday. Judge Bennett, Eleanor continued, you are confirmed. Full duties begin Monday. Rachel accepted the papers. I look forward to ensuring that every individual, regardless of status, is treated with respect in this courtroom. The Roberts family began to smile. Dunham stiffened. With all due respect, I'm still presiding until Friday. Today's hearing continues. Rachel turned to the Roberts. Would your family be open to rescheduling under the guarantee of full and fair review? Yes, Mr. Roberts said immediately. Kavanaugh jumped up. Objection, Your Honor. This is. Rachel's voice was ice. A settlement built on imbalanced representation isn't justice. Dunham's face turned crimson. I've never been unfair. Chief Justice Vance raised her hand. This isn't the place. Court is adjourned until Monday. After the crowd dispersed, Rachel approached the Roberts quietly. I'll make sure your voice is heard. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Kavanaugh lingered near the door. Judge Bennett, I expect vigorous advocacy, she said, but within the bounds of fairness. Of course, Your Honor. As Rachel gathered her papers, Chief Justice Vance whispered, That wasn't subtle. Rachel smiled. It wasn't supposed to be. By Monday, the courthouse buzzed with the story. Legal blogs debated her undercover approach. Some criticized her, others praised her. She entered courtroom 3 wearing her black robe, her nameplate now above the bench. All rise, called the bailiff. Rachel took her seat. Before we begin, let me be clear, she said. This courtroom will operate on one principle, equal justice. Everyone here deserves to be heard. She opened the file. Roberts versus Easton and Burrell. Are both parties ready? And with that, a new era of justice began.